Welcome to Real Talk Christian Podcast, where we drink coffee and have real conversations on faith, culture, and society. I'm your host, Chris Fuller.
And I'm Marc Hyde.
And on today's episode, we're actually going to be talking about something that's kind of been surrounding our country here as of late. That dirty word, Christian nationalism. It's going to be a good conversation. Are you ready for this one?
Let's get canceled.
Let's go. Well, you know, we're back in the studio.
Shady's back.
We had a good conversation with Ryan Coatney a couple weeks ago.
Yes, sir, do. I love me some Coat.
And
love me some Coat.
And now we're going to dive into something that's really a touchy subject. I got to scoot in here to the camera.
Nice and cozy. How you doing, big guy?
But, yeah, you know, it's going to be an interesting conversation. I know that this has been being thrown a lot around in the political sphere here in the United States. Probably since the election, I would say. And yeah, I think it's gonna be a good conversation.
Yeah, screw it. Let's just jump right in. So, we'll still do our normal stuff. But do you think that the term Christian nationalist? I feel like when Trump ran for re-election, 5 years ago?
2020,
yeah. 2020. That seems like an eternity ago. I feel like that term was being thrown around way more back then than it is now.
Oh, see, I disagree.
Right? Or do you think it's being thrown around right now?
I think it's still being thrown around. And actually, yeah, we'll get into it a little bit more.
I like it.
I don't want to leave the people without the housekeeping.
Absolutely, the housekeeping. I will say our song is vibing. I'm bumping with our song right now. But dude, so we are not drinking any coffee tonight, but we got our these are LaCroix, courtesy of not Janelle, because Janelle
the Hyde family home.
Janelle failed.
The funny thing was like we were down to nothing, and she went to Walmart today. She did. She straight up went to Walmart.
The Wally World.
I go, you were at Walmart. Why didn't you just grab stuff there? She goes, I totally forgot. I'm like, it's podcast night. I mean, what are we supposed to drink? Water?
What losers just drink water?
She goes, I'll run to the store. She's like, Dollar General's down the road, right?
Yeah,
so she runs
the
down
one
there.
right there by Culver's and Penn and all that?
Yep. So she runs down there. She goes, all they had was the ice, so I didn't get you guys anything because that's disgusting.
Which
I said,
I
can
will
appreciate.
say, my mom buys a lot of that ice from like Costco or Sam's, whatever, like the Kirkland brand or
Yeah,
whatnot,
yeah.
and the kids just eat it up. But I'm looking at
it ain't no LaCroix, no bubbly. You know, on into good stuff.
But this is what sucks, because I look at that stuff and I'm like, hey, how's that bubbly red dye 40 treating you over there? And I'm like, I'm that guy now. Where I'm always looking at labels going, is it red dye 40?
Hey, don't worry.
Is it red dye 40?
Don't worry. Every can we drink has got the forever metals in it. So anyway,
but we're not drinking.
But no dyes.
No, we're not drinking no
dyes.
Janelle LaCroix tonight.
No.
We're drinking Hyde. Actually, I have to confess, this is from Beth's stash.
Ooh.
So we stole two from Beth's stash.
No, you stole.
No. It's a we here, homie. It is a we. If I am going down, you coming with me.
I am not facing the wrath of Beth.
But so Raz Cranberry is what we're drinking right now, that is Beth's like
number
standard.
one.
That is their go-to.
You know
that
what?
Is the consistent.
Do you remember the
house.
cream savers? Do you ever remember eating cream savers back in the day? They don't make them anymore.
No.
Raspberry,
they do.
The raspberry cream savers?
They do make the cream saver. The orange. They have the orange cream. You can get at Cracker Barrel.
Not the orange ones. These are the red ones. They were raspberry cream savers.
I think you can get them at Cracker Barrel.
They even used to have the sugar-free ones. I'm like, why aren't they still making the cream savers?
But those cream ones are apparently my father-in-law's like favorite snack. So when Beth gets some, whenever we're traveling, we're heading their way, or we know we're going to see them, and she sees them, she always gets one to be like, hey, here you go. Because that's like his favorite. That's his church mint. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
You want some candy? Well, he don't give them out because
he just snack on them.
These are for him.
He said the scripture is for you, the candy is for me.
You get Jesus, I get Jesus plus some cream savers.
I get Jesus,
but that's his church mint. You know what I'm saying? Like that's his little pop church mint.
Yeah.
So when Beth sees them, she tries to hook them up. They don't sell those everywhere.
But these taste like the raspberry. Like it's got a slight
really?
hint of the raspberry cream savers, man.
Dude, remember when we used to first start drinking LaCroix on the show, and I'd be like, man, it's like water with a fart of a flavor inside of it, and now this is all I drink.
Yeah, me too. Well, remember, and then we were opening the bubblies because when we discovered the bubbly and how much fizz they had, we used to put them up to the microphone and be like, listen to it, and it was like,
dude. So I got some new bubblies, and I drank them all so fast. And
Don't
I'm
you
like,
hate it when that happens? It's so disappointing.
I bought a 2-pack thinking it would get me until we record again so I can bring them, and I pounded 2 packs in a week.
Yeah. Oh, dude. So we buy.
It was
like
awful.
4. We okay. So typically, Janelle gets like 2 or 3 cases of Waterloo, and then like 1 or 2 like bubbly or LaCroix
like
or
some random
whatever.
flavor. Or something.
Exactly.
Yep.
Because we do pickup orders, and sometimes they out and they just substitute.
Thank you. Yes,
they just substitute.
Thank you. Hey, we thought you want coconut.
So
I don't want coconut.
Usually we get like 4 or 5 cases, and they are gone in a week.
Because that's what we drink.
I mean, that's gotta stay hydrated.
We drink. Well, you guys are like the you guys do water flavor. You guys do what, like the lemonade or the
like
crystal,
the flavor
crystal light stuff? Yeah, the flavor packets.
No.
You guys don't do those anymore?
We got off of them because of the dyes.
Oh, see, we do Propel because there's no dye in it.
Yeah,
we do Propel.
I never like the taste of it.
We also drink like we drink a pre-post, or what is it? It's like a
pre-workout.
Well, no, it's your boy ain't working out. No, it's a prebiotic that has
you got 8 kids. You working out, boy? That's called running.
I'm not working out. Daddy just overstimulated all the time. That's what it is. Daddy gets grumpy. That's what happens.
Yeah.
But so we drink that stuff, in the mornings. I've been Propel throughout the day. Well, that's not true. I drink coffee throughout the day.
The yum yum
your boy's been
water.
drinking. Your boy's been drinking a lot of Americanos lately.
Ooh,
excellent.
That's like almost always your go-to now is the Americanos.
If it's not coffee, it's Americano. And I found a fun way to make it. I'll say about it later. But with our bubblies, we normally always have Raz, Cranberry, LaCroix.
Okay.
Because this is best. This is the base.
That's her go-to.
Remember how Coach said you got to have the foundation before you build the other things?
Absolutely.
If we have all the other flavors, but there's no Raz Cranberry,
you can't build a house.
Exactly. And so we always have that in the house. But I bought a blackberry bubbly.
Ooh.
And it was like a blueberry pomegranate.
Okay.
And they were banging.
Listen,
all
I know
banging.
is I'm looking forward to the Summerberry Waterloo.
Dude, I keep slapping your leg.
That's
I'm
all
so
right.
excited.
That's all right.
They had some at Sam's, and so I bought a packet. Yeah, that was gone in like 2 days.
Absolutely, every time.
We pounded it.
That was like when remember I bought some of that Summerberry when we went to Revive Fest.
Oh, that was gone in like 10 minutes.
Man, we pounded it.
And speaking of Revive Fest, we haven't talked about Revive Fest
not
in a
while.
little bit.
Yeah,
and so make sure you guys head over to myrevivefest.com, get your tickets, because you got to hang out with your boys.
And, I don't know, maybe, do you think the RTC code still works? You might be able to type in RTC as a code. I don't know if it still works or not. I really
talked with Matt Grimman a little bit
about
this.
I need to really reach out to Matt. Because, we gave him so many good suggestions last year, and he used none of them. None of them. So, no, we'd really need to reach out and start talking about that. Because, I mean, think about it. We're really getting close.
We're what, 2 months away? Month away?
Time of recording.
About 2 months away.
Yeah. I mean, by the time this thing drops, probably about 2-3 months away.
And so make sure.
Close.
And we normally, I will say, we normally at least have a couple tickets to give away sometimes. But we're bringing the Hydes with us this year, so we're gonna deplete the ticket supply very fast. Let's put it that way.
But I'm going to be interested to see what they if they want us to MC again. I hope so. I have a lot of fun when we do the MC.
MCing is way more fun than just sitting in a booth.
Well, I mean that's fun too, getting to hang out and talk with people. But bro, I've already started pre-planning of giveaway stuff because you know me, and we're gonna do the light up foam sticks. We're gonna do some of them.
Like lightsaber type things.
Yeah, we're gonna do some of them. We're gonna do frisbees with our logo on the frisbee. We can throw out into the crowd. We're going to do candy again.
And if you would like to sponsor the show so we can afford all these giveaways, let us know. We'll give you the Venmos. But we got some reviews to read because I want to make sure we don't spend. It's already been 10 minutes.
Yeah,
sorry, Sabrina.
Hey, listen, here's a little banner for you.
I will say, I listened to one of our past episodes, and I'm like, man, we banter a lot. Yeah, but people want it, so we're going to give you what you want. So I'm going to read the 2 reviews because, again, we're trying to catch back up to the reviews.
Absolutely.
So I'm going to read 2 reviews, and then I'm going to just literally toss it back into your court.
All right, and then we'll just start the conversation.
So this review is from Dalton Reviews, almost like that's his business. Do you have a business of leaving? Are you in the business of leaving reviews?
He's a review business leader.
But it says learning more as a newer Christian. It says my microphone's in the way. I've been claiming my faith for about 7 years now, but have been a quote unquote lazy Christian. I've been growing in my faith and hungered to learn more over the last 2 years. Finding a podcast that resonated with me as a quote-unquote younger Christian. I'm 30 now, so I don't classify as young. Yeah, you do, homie, because we older than Ed, so you still young. You a young gun.
Well, he's 31 now. This is from a year ago.
Oh, that's true. Okay, yeah, now you're old. Sorry. You wait 29? No more. You're 31. Sorry, let's get back to it. Find a podcast that resonated with me as a younger Christian has been very difficult for me. I stumbled upon RTC and have been hooked ever since. Marc and Chris, you spelled my name right. Thank you. Marc and Chris have a great energy that they delivered their message with. They focus on the word and their interpretation of the word while keeping an open mind of what scripture could mean. We try our best. The best way I can describe the podcast is like you're sitting down with some buddies and just talking. That's what I'm talking about. That's right. What it's supposed to be. I appreciate what you guys are doing for the Christian community. Keep up the great work. And then the second review is just 5 stars. Highly recommend from Feliciano G. Did I say that right? Feliciano?
We're going to go with it at this point. Just say it with confidence.
I'm going to do the Italian. Feliciano G.
Feliciano.
I'm going to do my little Italian thing. But this podcast is amazing. It's helped me so much on learning about being a follower of Christ. That is a very awkward motion.
You got to do the hand. Feliciano. The podcast is amazing.
I'm on episode 44. Bro, you got a long way to go. And I started from the beginning, so I have a lot to catch up on. Yes, you do. You just listened to episode 39 when you wrote this review. Let me know when you find out what happens after that. The sequel in this case is way better than the original. So I highly recommend this podcast to beginners of Jesus Christ. And if you love coffee talk, they talk about it. Yes, we do, because this guy loves coffee too. So just like always, if you leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, send us an email. It might take us a little bit to get back to you. You've been doing better.
Promise. Let's do a promise, right? You leave us a review, type in swag bag.
Into the email header?
Into the email header.
We get so much junk.
Well, not only that, there's just... Okay, I woke up this morning to 6 emails and a few Facebook messengers, and I'm going to let you guys know right now, this ain't our full-time job.
Nope.
Okay? And your boy over here has very little time to sort through everything.
Yep.
So we do our best, right? Marc, you're really good at social media. Very good at
sometimes. I'm in the group.
I am not.
I'm in the group all day long.
I try to hang. I've got 5 emails I got to respond to right now from this morning. And this is like a daily thing. So it's just compounding for us. So bear with us. We try to get back to everybody. Sometimes we miss people. If you really want to hear from us or want to get an opinion or just want to hang out, there is a place for that. Marc, why don't you go ahead and tell people
You can go online right now to Facebook and join the RTC online Facebook community. That is so good that we had some people in the Facebook group who decided to give up Facebook for Lent, social media for Lent, and they gave up after 2 days because they missed the RTC Facebook community so much. And we love you, Barbie. I was going to call it Barbie. We love you. And so that's what Barbie said. She said she gave up Facebook for Lent, but had to renege because she missed the RTC online community so much.
That's awesome.
Which I think is just the
best,
it's not awesome.
The best she gave it up.
Yeah, I mean, I feel really bad where I'm like, yay, sorry you broke Lent. I'm so sorry. But
so sorry. So sorry, but yes, I mean, I'm so sorry.
I'm pretty sure this is acceptable. I'm pretty sure this is
for
acceptable.
Jesus.
Yeah, but seriously, it's an encouraging place for us to grow as Christians. And so, but speaking of growing in our faith as Christians, talking about a Christian word that gets attached to maybe a not so good word, what are we talking about tonight,
We're talking about something a little cringe.
Dang, right? 13 minutes of talking about LaCroix. Let's see.
I mean, welcome back to Banner. So, we're talking about Christian nationalism. Now, why are we talking about Christian nationalism? Because we haven't talked about it before. And
we've hinted at, we've danced around it.
We've danced around politics. It should be Christians be involved in politics. And we touched it lightly a few times. Mm-hmm. But I felt like it was time for us just to open up and let's talk about it, right? Because it's very contentious. Okay. In our political sphere here in the United States right now, and even in the world with some of the things that the current administration of the United States has been doing, right? There's contention. You know, Trump is claiming to be a Christian. He's holding prayers in the White House, and for some people,
what was the new wing of the the person that oversees the Christian?
Yeah, I forget what it's called.
Paula White's the head of it.
So there's
I think it's Paula White.
There's a section of people that are very excited, a section of people that are a little unsure, a section of people that are very mad. Well, we're going to kind of dive into the section of people who are really mad, right? Because they use a term called Christian nationalism. And typically when they're using that term, they're using it more in a derogatory manner of basically kind of trying to call you a name.
Yep. Oh, so yeah, Paula White is Trump's faith office pastor, or like the real title, I think, is I'm not sure what.
That's all right. It's a rabbit trail.
Oh, faith office advisor. That's what it is. But so there are a lot of things that Trump is doing in the religious sector, to connect it to his administration.
But not only that, right? It's a lot of President Trump's supporters who claim to be Christian and maybe are a little politically charged at times.
Okay,
in a nice way.
Okay,
and so because of that. I'm not saying right, wrong, or indifferent, but because of them being kind of politically charged and also calling themselves a Christian, there's another sect of people that is using this derogatory version of Christian nationalism to mean, we'll find out what it means.
I'm like, this is a can of worms, homie.
You notice how I'm dancing, right?
Yes, you're dancing real good.
I'm bobbing, I'm weaving. My name ain't Steven, and I'm leaving.
You a grass fairy right now. You just dancing.
I got it. I learned from the best. So in order to understand because I feel like there's a misunderstanding between people of when you hear Christian nationalists of what that actually means.
I mean, I think dirty once I hear that word, to be honest with you.
So some people are like cringe, ick, they got that feeling.
I cringe.
Some people are like, no, that's awesome. Like, yeah, okay. And it's like, well, it depends.
Some people embrace it like
absolutely,
it's a badge of honor.
But not in the way that you would think.
Okay.
So I figure, you know what? Let's take a few different points of view, right? And let's just see what people define Christian nationalism.
Because we do need to define it before we jump into it.
Well, we got to define it not just in the historical terms, but in the cultural terms of what it means today, right? So I think that's the best way to do it.
I'm with you there. Yep.
So there are a few different definitions depending on who you're talking to. So Drew Strait, a PhD associate professor of New Testament and Christian origins, in an article posted on Anabaptist Mennonite Biblical Seminary,
which is right down the road,
right?
By the way,
absolutely, it is here in South Bend. Says this: Christian nationalism, in short, is a worldview where one's theology, imagination is co-opted by the state power. It exchanges the church's loyalty to the Lord of Peace for a false god fashioned by the myth of American exceptionalism. In fact, Christian nationalism is a form of political idolatry that distorts our knowledge of God and neighbor through a xenophobic, racialized, and militarized gospel that is at odds with the life and teachings of Jesus. So that's the first.
That's a bold statement. That's a strong statement.
That is a very strong statement.
Yeah.
So that's the first, right? Again, we're going to give some different points of view here, right? So we could try to understand and unravel these definitions.
Mm-hmm.
So the next one comes from our friends at gotquestions.org, right? And he's actually going to give several perspectives.
Ooh, there's a lot of them. Okay.
Yeah. So the term Christian nationalism remains difficult to define. This is what gotquestions.org says. Those who use the term are generally the ones who can explain what they mean by it, right? So if you say Christian nationalism and I say, I could probably give you what I'm thinking Christian nationalism means, and it may or may not be the same or different than what you're saying.
Yep.
And what they mean by it may be completely different from the meaning assigned by others. Some related terms are easier to define. Patriotism is a love for one's country, right? Merriam-Webster Dictionary. Nationalism is loyalty and devotion to a nation, especially as expressed in a glorifying of one nation above all others, and a stressing of a promotion of its culture, interests, and so on and so forth. Based on these definitions, one would think that a Christian nationalist would simply be a Christian who loves and is proud of his country. A nationalist who happened to be a Christian, but the working definition of Christian nationalism is usually something far different. For example, according to Jared Sexton, Christian nationalists are to be blamed for suffering inflicted on refugees, bold-faced white supremacy and cruelty, attacks on gay and transgender Americans, open anti-Semitism, the destruction of Roe v. Wade, and more. That came from Sexton J. Christian nationalism popularity should be a wake-up call. And I'll put all these in the show.
And that's in Time Magazine.
Right.
Dang.
So sociologists Andrew Whitehead and Samuel Perry give the basic definition of Christian nationalism as an ideology that idolizes and advocates a fusion of American civic life with a particular type of Christian identity and culture. But then they assert that this so-called Christian culture includes an assumption of nativism, white supremacy, patriarchy, and heteronormo blah 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 blah. I had it earlier. Heteronormativity.
Heteronormal.
Sure, exactly. Yep. See,
heteronormativity.
There you go.
Hey, I got it.
Along with divine sanction for authoritarian. Well, I cannot speak.
Authoritarian control and militarism.
Authoritarian control and militarism.
I got you, boo-boo.
It is an ethic and political as it is religious. Understood in this light, Christian nationalism contends that America has been and should always be distinctly Christian from top to bottom. In its self-identity, interpretations of its own history, sacred symbolism, cherished values, and public policies. And it aims to keep it this way. Again, this comes from taking America Back for God, Christian Nationalism in the United States, Oxford University Press, 2020. Author Michelle Goldberg claims the, quote, the ultimate goal of Christian nationalist leaders isn't fairness, it's dominion. The movement is built on theology that asserts the Christian right to rule. That's from Kingdom Coming, The Rise of Christian Nationalism from 2006. Matthew McCullough tones down the definition of American Christian nationalism, stating it's an understanding of American identity and significance held by Christians, wherein the nation is a central actor in the world historical purpose of the Christian God. So, in light of all that, Mark,
jeez, okay,
what would you define Christian nationalism as in a definition of, at least maybe not before this conversation, but what your understanding of it is? What makes it ick to you?
So it depends who's the person that's being asked, because it seems like each person is reading their experience and their opinions into their own definitions.
Right, but I'm saying outside of this.
Oh.
Before you heard any of this,
like what was my
what would be your initial thought of what you think or thought?
That a Christian nationalist is basically the fact that the rules and governance of America should be Christian, and therefore not just Christian, but we need to be more focused on America than any other country that's out there. And so as a Christian nationalist, by definition, it would be they are pro-American Christian.
Yeah. So I'll
just basically it's like we're Americans, so therefore we should want the best for America, and we want America to be the best. So that's what I would assume would be that definition.
This is what I would have said, what I would have thought Christian nationalism was before reading and researching for this episode. Mm-hmm. Right? I'll give you what I would have thought the definition would have been. Would have been a Christian who is very proud or patriotic, who is living in their country and wants the best for their country, but also would like to see Christian values instilled based upon morality that Christians have. So they are a Christian wanting to see God's morality in the nation.
Yep.
And that's where I would say, that's where I would have said prior to this episode and reading all these different definitions.
Yeah, and I will say, this is where it gets really hard, man, is the fact of like, dude, I follow so many people on social media. Right. I mean, on both sides of the aisle. I try to follow people on both sides, middle of the road. I generally, for lack of a better word, I kind of land more in the third way, where I'm not right wing and I'm not left wing, and I
kind of independent almost.
Yeah, I feel like an exile almost. And there's certain things that I love that the right does, and there's certain things that I'm like, yo, the left got this right. Like we got to fix this stuff. And so Candace Owens, who got absolutely massacred by the right when she came out with a lot of her own stuff. I mean, I'll listen to her podcast with her and Theo Von. Do you have that podcast? It just dropped. It is fantastic. Yeah, listen to this one. But she was saying that both sides are all about just trying to. I don't put words in her mouth, but it's almost like both sides are trying to bully the other one into submission. Yeah. And normally, whenever people start putting names or labels on things, it's because we either can't understand it, so we have to create a common definition around it, or we put a title around it in order to gaslight people. And so when you see the early term Christians, that was actually a derogatory gaslighting term that the people on the outside gave to the followers of the way, the people of the church. And so now, there's this awkwardness where some people have taken the term Christian nationalist as like a badge of honor.
Right.
And you see a lot of people on social media who are very much, pro-Christian, anti-vax, get rid of the food dyes, get back to the normal food, get rid of big pharma.
Sure.
But at the same time, make America great again. Let's bring everything back to America because we're the best country in the world, so let's make sure we're the best country in the world. Sure. And then there's other folks who are more like the fact of like, yeah, I'm a Christian, and yes, I do have Christian values, and I want to see those Christian values play out in politics. But at the same time, how much Christianity can you what's the word I'm looking for? Not legalize. Crap. What's the word I'm trying to basically, if people are not Christian, can we actually put policies into place that make them act like a bunch of little Christians? Like for example, going back a little bit, got the Church of England, right?
Yep.
Who everyone, if you were born a Brit, you were born in the Church of England.
Right.
In the same way as if you were born a German,
right,
you were born a Lutheran. And then in so many other cultures, if you were born in this country, you were like Russia, you were born Eastern Orthodox. So that's just who you are. If you're born in South Bend, you're Catholic. It's just kind of how it works.
Sure.
Like, that's a joke. But in America, we have the separation of church and state. And I do want to say this, that I love when I hear people like from both sides of the aisle talk about, we want to separate the church and state. So church, get your butt out of our government. When I'm like, whoa.
That's not what it was about.
That's not what it was about.
Right.
It was the fact of it was a bunch of Baptists writing a letter. Go Baptists. A bunch of Baptists writing a letter to Thomas Jefferson saying, we just want to make sure that you don't tell us what type of faith we have to have.
Right.
Whereas like the Church of England, they say, no, if you are a actual state church, you are Anglican.
And they do
That's
that.
it.
They do that even to this day over in China. Did you know that? That there is a government.
Oh, yeah, because there was like that
China,
pastor that got locked up in jail
absolutely,
forever because he did not subscribe to the quote-unquote state church.
Same with, to apply
same
for
with
it and all
Hitler
that
in
stuff.
Germany.
Absolutely.
And if you want to read a fascinating account, read that Bonhoeffer biography. Dang, that'll blow
Yeah.
your mind.
So let's lean into this a little bit, right? So should Christians, and I mean, I kind of have my opinion on this, but I want to hear yours. Should
This is the beautiful thing about it being your episode. You get to throw the ball in my court a lot. I get to talk a lot.
So should Christians want to see Christian ethics in the political sphere, the governmental oversight realm?
I'm going to back this up. Can I go more metaphysical on this? Like step out and step back in?
Bro,
All right, I'm going to step out.
I ain't your daddy or your God. You can do whatever you want.
Well, seeing as my daddy's dead, I can't listen to that one. But
hello, son.
that was dark. I'm sorry, guys.
It's okay. I'm your dad reincarnated. No, I'm kidding. Son.
I lost all train of thought on that one.
Metaphysical realm outside.
All of Western values are Christian in nature.
Yes. Yep.
The LGBTQ conversation, the Black Lives Matter conversation, the fact that you can hate a president based on if you don't like them in office or not, and you can be vocal about it, and you can have flags in your yard about it, actually stems from a Christian worldview. When you look at all other worldviews, and you can read so much work. Tom Holland, not Spider-Man, but the historian. Great book, Dominion. I'm in the middle of it right now. And there's a lot of other books where the fact of all of these movements that are so anti-gospel can only happen in a culture that has Christianity at its core. Mm-hmm. Because in all other cultures, if you went against the governor or you went against the king, you were instantly axed.
Sure.
Do you see that all throughout culture where if a new king came up, all of his opponents, if you were against him, you were dead.
Right.
Like you didn't just like, oh, you lost, you can come back in 4 years and try again. You were dead. You were killed. You were slaughtered. When you look at the ancient Roman and Greek cultures, I mean, literally, like there are records of people where it's like slaves, right?
Sure.
Like you could be walking down a road, see a slave, and legit do what you want to them sexually. Right. Like basically, you could use them to. This is gross, but as your urinal, like it's gross.
Right.
And so all of those things have changed. How we handle babies and those who are broken or ugly or whatever. It's like Christians changed the entire narrative around this.
Isn't it amazing
of the value of a person?
That during the time that Paul was writing the epistles,
it was crazy.
That was the scene of
government.
Crazy. When Paul penned Romans 13, that was the government.
Yeah.
That was the government oversight when he penned that.
And when you see when Paul says, husbands, love your wife as Christ loved the church, that was the most radical statement a dude could make.
Right.
And then when you see husbands or wives show and respect your husbands, that was wild because husbands did things that were not respectable.
Right.
And wives were treated as just a piece of property just to make some babies. That was it. It wasn't for fun or companionship or for community. It was literally just because that's how society functions.
Right.
And so when you look at all of our society in the Western culture, so many people are like, we want to get Christianity out of the center of culture. Well, the problem is you can't.
It's embedded.
It's embedded.
Yeah.
It's absolutely. And so the idea of healthcare and education and human dignity, value, and worth, the fact that everyone can have a voice and a platform and stand or reason, and that you can have differences of opinions, and that's totally okay. That's not a Darwinian value and virtue that comes up. In fact, when you look at all the culture, it's barbarian culture. It's the stronger culture. It's the we don't care. We're going to use you because you're the loser and we're the winner. And if you don't fit into our culture, we will axe you so dang fast.
Right.
And you see that throughout all of culture. And it wasn't until, I don't want to say until the Christians, because the Jews did a lot of this too in a good way. And you do see little glimpses of I would say, godly virtues and values in other cultures and in Eastern cultures that are some good things that are happening. But when you look at cultures that are so completely anti-Christian, when you look at like the 1040 window in the Middle East and some of these what we'd call barbaric laws, that's a world without Christianity. Mm-hmm. And so when you look at the Christian worldview right now, so many people, and you can't argue with someone about this, where it's like, well, your worldview is like, you live in a Christian worldview, homie, so sit down and shut up. Like, you can't say that. But the fact that we can even have this conversation right now is proof that Christianity is so embedded in our culture that we don't even know and we don't even realize it. And so for us, when we say how much morality can you legislate? Well, you can't legislate morality to change people's behavior, but you can legislate morality in terms of protecting the innocent and other people. And so when we're talking about protecting the innocent and the vulnerable and the weak and the downtrodden, that's Christian values, homie. Like, that's not...
And
that's not pagan.
And to kind of bounce off of what you're saying, because I totally agree with everything you just said.
I don't even know if I answered your question. I'm kind of
you did. You answered it in a roundabout way, and
I went metaphysical.
I'm going to springboard off of it.
Yeah, okay.
And I'm going to say, as Christians, we're called to impact our community, right? And part of that is to go out and impact our community, right? With our thoughts, with the morality of God, with teaching. I mean, this is to care for the poor, the widow, the sick, the orphan, to do those things, right? Which is a very Christian-centered ethics that we see built into our nation. Now, I think that so to answer the question, I think we'd both agree that yes, there is a place for Christians to influence, right? Influence the country, the world, the community in which they have been placed in by God.
And this is where I struggle, bro, where it's like, okay, so you hear so many times that Christians, and I'm not speaking for myself, sure. I'm just speaking through the lens that I have been interpreting and seeing culture over the last handful of years. You see so many people screaming that on both sides, Christians who are saying that, well, we shouldn't be involved in politics and we shouldn't be doing this. We should just be doing what God wants us to do. But if most of America, let's just say happens, that most of America happens to become Christian, wouldn't our laws start to look like most of America? And therefore, when people say, oh, we got to get even Christians who say, we got to get out of politics, we got to get the Bible out of the center of politics because we're worshiping a man or worshiping an ideology, we're not worshiping the Bible. But the problem is if most of our Christians, and the way American politics work is it generally follows the people.
Right.
But I will also say there is like the dark side of government where there's the deep government pockets, which are just a little bit crazy and a little bit scary. There is some of that we just can't deal with in our everyday life.
Yeah, right.
But at a local level, like okay, I think of, I'm just going to call a spade right here, right now. All right. So,
cancel.
The district that you and I both live in
Yep.
is a very heavily Christian-influenced area.
Yes.
Right?
We're basically the Bible Belt without being in the Bible Belt. Exactly.
And why is that? Some people will say, well, it's because we have a lot of church influence and culture. Some people, again, I'm calling spades here, right? Some people will say, well, we are a very white community, which we happen to be. And we are also a very rich, affluent community. Now, your boys ain't. We living in the poor part of the area.
We podcasting from a basement.
But if you go 2 miles north, you're getting into the $1 million homes.
Right.
Or if you go a little bit over by the river, you're getting to the $3 million homes.
Right.
Like, we live in a very wild community. But then just down the road, there's like $80,000 houses. Like, it's just, it is
or houses that you can't even live in.
But, and that's the Penn Harris Madison district. Right. And the school system is bumping. You got Christians that are all throughout the school system. Sure. And so as our society and culture, I would say, is more morally relevant, or I would say has at least a Christian influence,
Sure.
our policies and politics and school things tend to lean more in that direction.
Sure.
Whereas if you go over to
Chicago,
I was going to say South Bend.
But
if you go to South Bend, where it's more of, I'm just going to just say it's more of a liberal, left-leaning city, which again, it's just a fact. It's just a fact. Osceola, Penn, Harris, Madison, we tend to vote blue, and South Bend tends to vote red. That's just has been historically the way it's been for a long time, right? Did I get them confused?
Reverse that.
Oh.
Reverse and rewind.
I always mess that up. So our community and districts tend to vote red, Republican, and South Bend tends to vote blue for Democrat. That's just a fact. But people over there, they're going to tend to have more policies that match the people that are in it. So I get really confused and frustrated when Christians say, well, you can't ever have legislation and morality that's backed around the Bible because now we're trying to do this and make all these things are idols. But I'm like, but that's the way of the people. That's just the way it kind of tends to go. But
I will
on the
say,
flip side, people also say, get your Bibles out of the public sector and government. Y'all keep your Bibles in the church. We'll do our thing over here in the government. And I'm like, that's completely illogical.
So I will say that the left has good things that I would consider moral, right? Mm-hmm. Of more, if you want to talk about migrants, right? Where the right, we tend to be like, no, protect our boards. Screw those people if they starve to death. We've talked about this in the past offline. And so there's a struggle where I think both sides, as a Christian, we should really look at both sides because I think both sides have good things about them.
I mean, I'm tired of being the world's babysitter as America. That's what I'm saying.
But both sides have good things and both sides have some bad things, right? I would say that there's some bad things on the right and there's definitely some bad things on the left and there's some good things on the left and there's definitely some good things on the right. I think it's a give and take, and I think you get into trouble when you become, I'm hardline, I'm only this way.
But this is where it gets hard, though, because, when we're looking at this last election, there is the phrase that my boy Xavier likes to use. He's a personality on PragerU. He goes, finally, we voted common sense again. And so with this past political election, I feel like the separation was so wild in terms of, okay, so if you vote left, now you're voting for okay, sure, a 13-year-old can't get tattoos, smoke, have a gun, or go vote, but you can chop off their body parts. Sure. And it's like, why ain't voting that? But then you go to the right wing, and it's like, well, I don't like some of the policies that are over here either, but I'm not sure which one to handle.
So I'll show you. I'll share one with you right now. Right. Okay. So right now, if you vote right, and everybody's Doge, the whole Doge thing, the Doge craze, I call it.
Yep.
So Doge is good, right? There's some good things that Doge, very good wasteful spending, right?
That needs to be cleaned up.
Absolutely. But then there's the flip side where I have a friend who is a federal employee who works for the VA. And did you know that the managers are telling the VA they're cutting 83,000 VA jobs?
What?
This year.
We need more VA jobs.
83,000, which affects our veterans.
And they already are not getting the help they need.
Absolutely. So now we're part of the Doge, the Department of Government
Efficiency. We're throwing the baby out with the bathwater.
Absolutely. So I think that.
But at the same time, you got a clean house to rebuild too.
But it takes time to rebuild something like that. Whereas something, all I'm saying with that whole thing is that there's always, in most things, good and bad. Mm-hmm. And we as Christians, I think, should try to differentiate between those two things. But getting back to should we have influence, I greatly believe in this country, God has given us the ability with this country to be able to voice our opinions, right?
That's it. And that's the thing is the Bible was not written in a culture that we are in today. Not saying it can't speak into our culture.
Absolutely.
But America was called the great democratic experiment.
Sure.
Because there was nothing like it before on earth.
Now, I think that's parts of the Bible, like Romans 13, would still apply to us.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? So if the speed limit posted is 55, that's law. Or right? We're supposed to submit to that law.
Did I tell you I got my first traffic ticket?
Oh, he didn't submit to law, and the righteous authority over him that Paul talked about came down.
I was pulling up a coaching call to listen to, and I said, I'm here, and I was holding my phone, so I got a ticket because I was holding my phone.
Oh, so
it was stupid. It was stupid.
So back to, we're kind of talking a lot about, we're circling the same thing, right? That we should be involved. Now I want to kind of flip into the country side of things, right? Well, of the nationalist side. So we've talked about the Christian side, right?
But before we do that, this is where it gets so hard, though, is the fact of when you get very passionate about certain issues, you instantly have to put yourself in certain camps.
Right.
So we have people in this podcast who are very, very, very pro no pharma.
Yeah.
So therefore, they instantly get lumped over there. But then we have other people who work in the I'll call it the welfare system, right?
Sure.
In taking care of the poor, the homeless, the needy, those people who literally are born into poverty and they're stuck to get out, and they're like, "Yo, dude, we got to help these people, and this is the only way we're going to help somebody." So therefore, you get lumped into that side.
Sure.
And so I feel like that's where it just gets awkward. Is we're stuck with this two-party system, which last time I checked, I don't think George Washington even wanted a two-party system.
No.
But we're lumped into a two-party system where it's like, oh, okay, so even if you're like another best friend of mine, we both are in the middle, but one step in opposite directions.
That's how me and one of my friends.
You know what I'm saying?
We're just on the other side of the middle.
But we're so close that it's like we're hugging each other with like our elbows are touching the other side.
Absolutely.
But all of a sudden, because I voted one way and he voted another way, we both have said we feel like we're getting lumped where it's like, you're either you're a racist,
right,
or you don't have any common sense.
Well,
and it's like, I didn't say that.
That's why I hate the term. And there's one side that uses it often, the MAGA supporters. And again, like Christian nationalists.
And I will say, don't lump me into that category.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't want to be lumped into that category, because when people say MAGA, they're saying Trump loyalist extremists.
Right.
That's what they're saying when they're not saying making America great again.
Or there's even the side where, like, I'm on the side where I'm very careful who I say this to. I don't 100% fully support Israel with all the stuff that's going on.
You just said it to
everybody.
But
that doesn't mean I support Hamas. Like,
yeah.
I support none of you fools. Like, like you both doing some nasty, dirty things.
I support the land and the people. I don't support the policies of the leadership of Israel. Would that make sense? Right? That's kind of where
fair.
You feel?
A little bit different, but similar. Yeah. But it's more
again, we're hugging on the line,
right?
Man.
Exactly. So it's the fact of like, if I got to be so careful, because when people are like,
absolutely,
we stand with Israel and do this and do this and this, but then I tell people, over in Israel, if you're a pedophile American and you flee to Israel, Israel will protect you from the American government. As long as you stay in there, you'll never get tried as a pet.
And again, that's where I talk.
And I'm like,
that's why I talk about poor leadership.
What?
That's where I see poor leadership. But
exactly. So that's just where it gets wild.
That's a topic for. I mean, it's relevant, but I mean that whole Israel thing.
I'm just saying, I get annoyed by that with a Christian in the political world, because we have to be in the political world.
To me, I think that the biggest problem that we have, and Christians have, and I kind of want to keep talking about this, but then also bring it back and kind of bring it down to practical later on.
Okay.
But I think the problem we have is we all like to either be in a camp or lump somebody in camp. And there's some of us that are like, I don't belong to any of these camps. I don't belong to any of them.
It's called being an exile.
Yeah, exactly. And there's a lot more people, I think, a lot more Christians waking up and being like, no, I'm not in that camp. And I'm not in that. Both these camps are wrong. And that camp's wrong too. But they're all doing a little stuff that's right. And so I'm just confused. I'm a confused person.
But it's so hard because I follow so many people that are on the right, and it's because they have a beautiful platform for certain topics that they talk about. And I do like some of the people that are on the right. Like, honestly, Matt Walsh's documentary of Am I a Racist? Hilarious and fantastic. And it's good and it's right. And it's like, okay, so, or the transgender epidemic. Like, I don't support that at all.
Sure.
But that instantly means that I have to be lumped into this side.
Well, and I think we have to be,
I
think you have to be careful, because there's also a movement, and I researched it on your own time, but it's called the Third Way movement.
Well, I hinted at that, yeah.
Yeah, so the Third Way is...
And that's where I fall into.
So, but you got to be careful with that, because the Third Way movement actually believes that they won't call LGBT, like, they won't call sexual sins like same-sex marriage, stuff like that. They won't call it a sin. They say, no, it's somewhere in between. Like, that's the actual movement. So you have to be very careful, even lumping yourself into that camp.
Why we label everything?
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, like, hey, we're the Third Way movement. I'm like, oh, cool. And I'm like, looking at this, I'm like, yeah, I agree politically with them. And then I start looking into the theology, and I'm like, man, you got some messed up theology.
And this is where then it gets confusing, because then we have, like, Turning Point USA with Charlie Kirk, where they had their big CP USA conference.
Right.
But then they had a worship set at the beginning of the conference. And so when the outside world sees that, they see, Christian, white people,
Christian
conservative,
racist,
Christian nationalists.
Yep, that's where it comes from.
And so it's hard where it's like, these are a group of Christians who are very passionate about their beliefs.
They're patriotic, and then Christians on top of it.
And so I guess, how do we handle that then?
So that's what, the real question is, can Christians be patriotic, right? Can we have a sense of pride in our country and America, the greatest, home of the cheeseburgers and the Whoppers. America. Can we be patriotic? And I would say, I believe we can, but in a certain context.
Okay.
Right?
What do you mean?
And what I mean is there's a point of being patriotic, and there's a point of being a nationalist patriot to the point where you're actually sinning against God.
Oh, you're going to throw the sin word out there with patriotism.
Yeah.
Okay.
So like a couple of examples is like wishing evil on someone that has a differing political position, right?
Oh boy.
Like, man, I really don't like President so-and-so, and I wish they would just die. Or I wish they would just have a heart attack. Or I wish they would just slip and fall. Or I would just wish this or that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm just going to say, if you're a Christian, you have a Let's Go Brandon hat.
If you're wishing ill,
that's not okay.
If you're wishing ill on someone, how are you loving your enemy? How are you praying for them? How are you loving those who despitefully use you? You know, there's all these scriptures that surround about loving your enemy. So even if they are an enemy, we're called to love. And us, by wishing harm to them, is not loving. So therefore, I would say it's probably on that sin range, right? Another thing is not being loving and compassionate towards those in need. So again, and I know this is a touchy subject, illegal immigration, right? Now, there's laws of the land.
Yep.
Right? There are laws of the land. I agree with that. But if I saw a family that was starving that was an illegal immigrant, I would feed them. I don't know if I would go to the point in helping them break the law by harboring them, but I would feed them. I'd clothe them. I would see if I could help them get back to where they needed to go. That's just me personally.
Yeah, I had a friend who said it a really good way, where the fact of, like every country in the world has to have rules and has to have standards on how they track their citizens.
Right.
That's just called an SOP of life, like
right.
your standard operating procedures.
Absolutely,
like that you have to have it, so you know.
But you still have to have compassion.
You have to have compassion, and so he said, like he goes, should the government, send people back to their country if they're here illegally? He goes, yes. But if I have a friend who is here illegally, and it was his opinion. He goes, am I going to call ICE? He said, no, I'm not going to. Now it's up to that person to then, do things the right way.
And you should encourage them to do
and
the
there
right
are
thing.
some people here that are, they were brought here with their parents. They were kids, and now they are here as illegals. And they're like, well, should the sins of my parents be passed down to me, or is there ways to help me to get this in?
And not only that,
I do think we need a better way of getting people into citizenship.
I'll give you an example. I don't know if you ever follow the Bates. Well, do you follow the Bates social media?
Why do I know that name?
Because your wife went to school or something with one of them.
Oh, aren't they super fundies?
There's fundies.
Yeah, they're part of the Smiley Happy people. That is
no. That's the Duggards.
Well, yeah, but I think the Bates are right there with them.
No, I don't think they're that. I don't think they're Smiley fundy that way. I think they are definitely fundy. I didn't think they were part of the Smiley Happy group.
But anyway, keep going.
Anyways, so one of the sons is married, right, to someone whose family came over, not as an illegal, but what's the word? Like a sanctuary, like what is it called? Help me out here.
I wasn't listening.
When you come over,
on a visa?
It's not a visa. You come over because you need sanctuary from another
asylum.
country. Asylum. Thank you. So they came over in asylum, right?
You seek asylum because of political or religious persecution.
Exactly. So that's
yes.
what they had going on, right? And they've been trying to work through the process,
and that's how it works.
Absolutely, and they've been trying to work through the process since this guy's wife, this Bates' son wife, was a little small child, right? Well, now she's married. Well, they're still talking about deporting her under the Trump administration because they have not received their citizenship. And their asylum has gone up, and so they're still
expired.
Yeah, so they're still trying to. They had to refile, and they're back in courts again. And because she was under the original claim of asylum, even though she's married to an American citizen now, she can't claim the American citizenship being married because she was under the case of the asylum.
That's ridiculous.
So that's what I'm saying. Like, that in that case, like I would probably fight more for that person because they're technically on paper.
Yeah, they super fundies. They part of that same group as the Duggars. But either way, facts are facts. Points are points. Keep going.
Anyways, I would say that they're illegals on paper, but they're not. They've been here. They've been trying to do it the right way.
So do you think that this whole call ICE and round them fools up, that mindset, is that a good mindset to have?
My opinion, my personal opinion, and it's okay if anybody disagrees with me. I am not going to die on this hill. I'll tell you that right now. My personal feeling today is that I would not call ICE. I would strongly encourage the person who is here illegally to turn themselves in or return to their country. And I would try to help them in any way I could to do one of those two things and to try to re-enter that country legally. right? Because I want to be a good Christian, and I want to take care of them. But part of being a good Christian is not helping them break the law.
Unless
right?
the law is immoral, like hiding Jews from being murdered.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Right. That's a whole, that's an orange. We're talking about apples right now. You know what I mean? We're talking about somebody who came in illegally into the country, not somebody who's hiding illegally so they don't die.
Yeah, but what do you think about that mindset of like, yo, I'm so excited, I just go round you fools up, like that mindset? Is that a good mindset to have then, or no?
I would say that is wishing harm on someone, right?
That is. I mean, yeah.
I get it, right? Nobody's happy. If a thief steals from you, are you happy about it?
No.
But if a thief steals with you, what are you supposed to do?
Well, I mean, justice needs to be served.
Absolutely.
We're supposed to forgive.
Absolutely. But exactly, forgive, right? We're supposed to forgive and love, right? We're supposed to treat our enemies with good. If so-and-so takes my coat, I'm supposed to give him my cloak also. That type of mindset. And it's not the mindset of, oh, here, thieves, my door's open, take whatever you want. It's the mindset of, hey, I'm going to love you. Even if you harm me, I'm going to love you. I'm going to forgive you. I'm going to wish good upon you. That's the mindset that Christ was teaching.
And it's so hard, though, when you have to balance because sometimes doing the loving thing is turning somebody in. Like Beth and I are watching a TV show right now, and one of the main characters, he's an alcoholic. He's trying to hide it, and he's a doctor. Right. And one of his other doctors who is below him, he goes, I know it's going to look like I'm trying to steal this man's job, but in reality, I'm trying to protect the patients.
Sure.
And so he said, either you go or I go.
I would say harm to yourself, harm to others.
And that's where it gets so complicated with this whole conversation around all the things with Christian and in the political sphere is, it's so hard to straddle the line between honoring the laws of the land and trying to hold to the Christian values and virtues, because they're so sometimes at odds.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And so, and with taking care of the poor and the downtrodden, like, yes, there are a lot. And I'm coming from someone who has to raise a lot of kids because people made dumb, boneheaded decisions.
Absolutely.
This is coming from that guy.
Yeah.
Is the fact of it's hard because most people that are, I don't want to say poverty is different, but who are putting themselves actively with first starting to get drugs and strung out on drugs, a lot of times is because people make really dumb decisions and they refuse to get the help that they need.
Sure.
But the problem is we look at those people, like I look at some of these folks where it's like, you can get help. People are trying to help you. Yeah. Yes, you're refusing it because you love drugs more than you do taking care of your family.
Absolutely.
And so we take that mindset and apply it to everyone in poverty.
Yeah.
And every single mom. Where
we're enabling them.
Like, if you would have kept your legs shut and you didn't have a kid. Well, that already happened, bro. Like, come on. Can we help a single mom out? Like, I was raised by a single mama. Sure. Can we help a single mama out? And there are so many plans and things in place that I will say there are things that can help.
Let me ask you this. Are you going to be a better witness of the gospel by saying, well, you should have kept your legs shut, or by saying, listen, you made a mistake? And I'm going to help you through this mistake, and here's the gospel.
And that's
where
that Knoxville Hope Resource Center is beautiful, and some of the like Hope Resource here in South Bend is trying to do.
What was it? One life at a time. What was Emily?
Let them live.
Let them live. Thank you, man. I don't know why.
One life at a time was the campaign for Southern Baptist with evangelizing.
Yeah.
But so we do have these things, and I feel like that's where it's so hard. Where the fact of conservatives look at people in poverty and look at people like this, where it's like, well, we're living the American dream. So if you would just suck it up, stop shooting up, and pull yourself like bootstrap, maybe you can get a job.
Yeah.
And that's where right now the political struggle is the fact of, in the Christian worldview, we have such a high value of individuals and individual liberty, and then also individual responsibility. That and again, this is where it gets awkward, because once I start talking like this, I'm going to sound like you got to check privilege at the door. Now I'm going to sound like a liberal, where I do say the fact of, we look at that from a perspective of, yes, but we were given a good platform to stand on by our parents, hopefully. And then we look at people who are in poverty. And poverty is a vicious cycle. And we say, well, you got the personal responsibility to figure your crap out. So don't come to us, because we ain't giving you no money, because you go and blow it.
And I think there's a little of both.
It's so hard.
I think it's a little
of both. And that's what I'm saying. It's so easy to lump into categories. Yeah. And it's so freaking hard.
And I mean, we're really stuck on this compassion part, right? And this is where I love the conversation. That's why I said it's going to be more conversation.
This is where I struggle.
Right? So, like, I look at, like, Dr. Ben Carson, right? He was poverty-stricken. Raised by a single mother. Became a brain surgeon, right? Put himself through school, got scholarships, was able to do that, right? But he had good foundation, going back to talking about Coat, right? That foundation. And I think that's where Christians in our country should be really reaching out to help parents build those foundations for themselves, for their kids, and help those downtrodden, help those poor people, help anybody that needs the help to build those gospel foundations.
And it's so hard because it's like, as a family, I want my family to live in a place where my kids are safe, where they're not going to get shot up.
Absolutely.
But to do that, that's when they talked about the white flight out of the cities in the 90s and the 80s when they built all the burbs, and now all the white people built the burbs, and now white people are going back into the cities, and now they're trying to freshen up the cities. And what do you mean by freshen up the cities? It means getting rid of the homeless. Like, all of it. And see, all of a sudden, once I say that, that's the language that we're using in the political sphere. And I feel like it's just a never-ending hamster wheel of annoyance, to the point where I'm like, yo, this democracy thing's freaking hard.
So let's get into the next thing that I would say, that you could be a patriotic, but you'd be sinning against God if you did this thing. And you're leading into it, and that's why I want to jump into this next thing. It's wanting to have dominion over anyone else.
Okay.
Right? Because we're called rule. Absolutely, because we're called to be servants and to serve.
Right.
So to have a dominion means I'm putting you under my thumb, Mark, and you're going to do as I say.
Pressing down.
Absolutely. And so that should never be the mark of a Christian. We're called to be servants and to serve people, serve one another, serve our communities, serve the homeless, serve the widows, serve, you know what I mean? Serve the orphans. Christ said he came as a servant, and we're supposed to replicate the same things he did. And that doesn't mean that, oh, you're mistreating me, I got to be your servant, I'm going to serve you, even though you're gaslighting me, you're doing whatever. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about genuine people, the homeless, for example. Like you said, we're running homeless out of the city, right? Rather than running them out of the city, help them in finding a program, trying to help them to communicate, share the gospel with them. I mean, sometimes that's the starting point, is just going and sharing and caring, right? Be in the hands and feet. Go take them a cheeseburger and sit with them and talk with them, right? Sometimes it's just that. It's building that relationship, not just, hey, I bought you some food, now I'm driving off in my Cadillac. I mean, sometimes it's being there with them and building those relationships.
And, we were, two thoughts. One is, we were built, this is going to sound very archaic and barbaric, but we were built with tribes in mind. Like, our minds and bodies were not supposed to compute the problems of the world. They're supposed to take care of the people around us. And so on a personal level, that's what we're called to do. Yeah. But where it gets so awkward is, I feel like it's so easy for us to say that, but it's so funny though, because like, as Christians, we want to see everybody come to know Christ.
Absolutely.
And what gets hilariously awkward is when all of a sudden, what happens when the emperor becomes a Christian? Yeah. And then all of a sudden they start ruling as a Christian. And then all of a sudden Christians are like, whoa, Christians ain't supposed to be rulers. But it's like, bro, you wanted the emperor to get saved. Yeah. Like, what do you talk about? And so
it's just like the Jews saying, we want a king. We want a king.
That's why podcasts, I'm just going to say, that's why podcasts like the Holy Post drive me freaking nuts. Because like, we are so fast at blasting everybody, but then we want everyone to come to faith in Christ, except the ruler who's ruling everybody. We don't want him to come to faith in
I do.
Right.
I can tell you, I want President Trump to really come to know Christ right now.
But then what's
just like
so
I did President
awkward,
Obama.
though, is when the king then becomes... I'm thinking of Emperor Constantine.
Sure. I got what you...
When Constantine and those emperors became Christians, they started putting bishops in place. And, of course, every time absolute power corrupts absolutely, we see that. And we see that's when the bishops start doing...
whatever they want.
Super wackadoo things. Yeah. Super bad.
Indulgences.
But it's like, shouldn't we want to have a Christian leader who's setting up other Christians to run the nations and runs the things? But then all of a sudden we flip around and go, oh, the Christians shouldn't be running the nation, running things, because now it's all of a sudden become a political idol.
If you look at it, right?
And it's just awkward. It just becomes awkward.
But the way it's set up in our country is that they aren't a ruler. They're not an emperor, right?
Right.
They are a political figure, right? They're
supposed to be representing us.
But they are the represent. They're supposed to be serving the nation. That is what the president of the United States, Congress, the House, they're supposed to be representatives serving.
And this is where it gets awkward, because I feel like in a lot of sense, all of you can talk about clearing the swamp and all these things. I think we should have term limits. Personal opinion.
Absolutely.
But you do see a lot of people where it's like, well, if they keep getting voted in, they are representing their little populace. And so that's what some of those people actually do think.
Sure.
And it just gets hard. And so it's like when we see Trump doing things like Doge, like I'm a big believer. I love Doge in terms of let's get rid of the frivolous spending. Now, I think we're legit like tossing the baby out with the bathwater and not even.
I think there's a precise way to use Doge.
I don't even think they're batting an eye where it's like, sorry, baby, you are collateral damage. In the scheme of all the, like, we have to make these hard decisions. Your life is worth it for the betterment of the group. Think about it. And that is not a Christian mindset.
I was going to say, but think about it. Those are families. Those are people. What if that was you? What if that was you? Like, that's the thing that I think about is like, Those are families.
And that's where it gets awkward. That's
right,
where
wrong,
it
or
gets so
indifferent.
awkward.
Yeah, exactly. So I think there needs to be precision with it. It needs to be handled in a different. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, and this is where it gets hard as a Christian, where it's like, yes, we want to have these political figures at the top, but it's also hard when people are like, oh, and there is a lot of Trumpism that I think is a sin. And honestly, I do think that, when Steve posted that video in the group, he has a lot of great things to say about it. But it's also hard when it's like there are so many good things that Trump is able to do. So, and maybe he was here for such a time as this. I don't know. Yeah. I don't know exactly what's going on. But this is where it just gets so awkward, where the fact of there's a lot of things that Trump is doing that I am all about. Like, do I believe there's only two genders? Yup. Should that be actually the law of the land?
Sure.
Yup. I think that's a good thing. But people would be like, get your Christian values out of here. And it's like, nah, bro, that's science. Last time you checked, you told me to believe the science, and this is what science says. And so that's where it gets awkward because it seems like so many, I'm just going to call it left woke folks who are not Christians look at anything that has a moral spine and backbone as you're a Christian nationalist. And then Christian nationalists look over here where it's like, you're just a dirty, rotten sinner who just, needs to rot and burn. And I've heard people say that.
Snowflake,
and I'm like,
a big term. So.
Why are we pointing the guns at each other all the time?
So yeah, I mean, and I kind of want to bring this back in and kind of
we've been going for an hour.
I want to kind of get it back off of the just everything that's going on and kind of get back to Christian nationalism and really kind of finish and flesh the rest of this out because
and I do have another random question to talk about, but go ahead.
Absolutely. I mean, that's what it's conversation.
Yeah,
we're going long. This is probably the only episode we're getting done today because you got to go. So
let's make it count
with the dominion happening over people. I think it's important that as a Christian, we don't cross over into the patriotic side because I really, truly, at the heart of hearts, I believe that nationalists is patriotism, in its truest form. In the historical form, nationalist is a synonym for patriotism.
I would actually not agree with that one.
Okay,
I would say a nationalist is patriotism plus in terms of love of country, but we're better than all the other countries. That's kind of what nationalism is the fact of...
So I went back and looked at the historical definition.
Oh, dope. Okay.
Is why I'm saying that, because that's what the historical definition is saying.
Then yes, I would agree with the historical definition, yes. I will agree with the historical
from the early
definition.
1900s.
Yep,
so
I will agree with that one.
That's why I'm saying it.
Yep.
Love you, buddy. But
and I will agree with that sentiment.
What, the love?
Yes.
I can feel the love tonight.
Oh.
All right.
When
we got to lighten it up a little bit. It's a touchy subject for this, but I think it is important that in these patriotic moments, in these nationalist moments, whatever terminology you want to use, that we do understand that as Christians, we are called. We're called to be in this world.
Yep.
To interact with this world.
Yep.
But we're not of this world.
But we also see if we truly are exiles, which we are because we're ambassadors, we're not even in our homeland.
Right.
We see in the Old Testament of, well, what are we supposed to do? Well, seek the betterment of where you live.
Absolutely.
And if we're Americans, we should seek the betterment. Same as you who are listening, seek the betterment of New Zealand, seek the betterment of Canada, seek the betterment of Uganda, Japan, Northern Ireland. Yes, even England. We probably should seek the betterment of England, even though I love my Scots. But we should probably love England too.
Anyways,
and if you're English, you probably should want France to be doing well too. And so that's where it's just awkward.
Right?
Yeah,
and we should be sticking together and not fighting because there's a lot of inner Christian fighting going on over this political scene right now. There just is.
Yep.
I mean, that's just the facts of it. And I don't know if it's just. I'm guessing it's not just happening here because of so much stuff going on between what the UK is saying about what's going on here, what France is saying about what's going on here, what Ukraine is saying about what's going on. You know what
I got opinions on that one too.
So, yeah, but we'll save those opinions. Hold on. So what's another thing that we could easily take our patriotism or nationalist viewpoint, either one, even if you want to say patriotism plus on nationalists, that's fine. And really make it and cause a sin against God. And I would say if you're placing the country or symbols of the country as idols in our life. Like if I'm worshiping the flag, right? And I'm not saying anybody does this. I'm just saying if you were to do that, where you valued the flag to a point where, like you were kissing the flag, you were like in a worshipful manner. Right? I get honor, right? I think we should honor the flag, right? It's a symbol of what it represents, the freedom of we have in this country. I think there's a place for the honor, but there's a difference between honor and idolism, right? And we've talked about this before about having idols in the church. You know, that cross that used to hang up on the south side wall, right? Remember that years and years ago? We talked about it years and years ago. But there used to be a cross for Easter Sunday.
Oh, yes.
They used to hang up on that one wall.
Yep.
Right? And I said, is there anything wrong with having that cross? And it goes, no, unless we idolize it. Then there's a problem with it, right? If I valued that idol more than a person, say, or if I valued that object more than a person.
But it's hard because the thing behind the object is, for the cross at least, is our worship.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But are you worshiping the cross or are you worshiping Christ?
Who died upon the cross.
The cross has no meaning other than the place in which he was crucified. Sure, he was hung upon a tree, he fulfilled prophecy on it, but it really still has no bearing over Christ, right?
Rich, back in the day, the early Christian symbol wasn't a cross, it was the fish.
Right, absolutely. But to me, it's a symbolism, right? We remember by having the cross. By having the cross, it helps us to remember Christ. But if we forget Christ and only worship the cross, there's a problem. You know what I mean? So I'm not saying that anybody does that.
Right.
I'm saying you could take it a step too far.
Right.
And the same with your patriotism in a country, whether it's America, UK, France, where you're putting the things of the country and you're taking them from a position of honor and taking them to that next step.
So what would that look like? Because that's good in theory, but
Sure.
Practically, what does that look like?
I would say that if
You want to give my opinion why you think?
go ahead. I'll let you give your opinion.
Mine is the fact of I grind my teeth when I hear people say that America is the greatest country in the world. I grind my teeth at that statement.
Okay.
Because that's a pretty proud, boastful statement that we are the best, which means that there's a winner and there's losers. And we're the best, which means we're the winners and you're the losers.
Okay.
And so America is not as good as America. Or England is not as good as America.
Okay.
South Africa is not as good as America because we're the best country in the world. That statement grinds my gears. I say I am very thankful for the country that I lived in, that I was just... I didn't get to choose where I am at. Sure. I'm very thankful for the luxuries of being an American. I'm very thankful for the privileges that I have as being an American. I'm very thankful for the not even the need, but the comforts that we have, like indoor plumbing and electricity and clean water, where if I would have been born in some remote village, I wouldn't have a lot of that.
Sure.
And so there are a lot of things that I am very blessed and thankful for that I have here in America that I wouldn't have to worry about if I'm in other countries. But at the same time, you know, if you live in other countries, you have different worries and blessings than I have here than I'm an American. Yeah. And now I do think that there are a lot of amazing, beautiful stories that happen because of America in terms of the freedom of liberty and vision, but there's also a lot of dirty, gross history in America too, like the Trail of Tears and slavery, and those things are not. Those are blemishes on the beauty of America, but every country has those blemishes. Why? Because America is filled with sinful people who need Jesus, just like every country is full of sinful people who need Jesus. I could
agree with that.
And so for me, when I hear the word, and I know people are just, oh yeah, is it a great country to live in? Yes,
so
absolutely.
You're saying more of that symbol of pride then.
Yes. And now the whole I'm proud to being an American, and I go, bro, last time I'm checking, my Canadian friends doing it up in Canada too. Like there's some things they don't like, but they free too. Like it might be different.
No, I don't think there's a problem necessarily with saying, yeah, I'm proud. Like I'm proud of you, Mark.
Well, thank you.
You know, does that mean I'm less proud of my other friend? No, it doesn't mean doesn't mean I'm less proud. It's just I'm proud of you. Right. So I think there's a place for that.
And there is a lot of pride in being an American, now, especially in the soccer world and in the football world and in the baseball world. You're the best kicking their butts.
Now you're saying that you're better than other people.
In sports, yes. Not soccer. We are at the bottom of the barrel. We're working on it.
But no, I see what you're saying. I get what
but it's the idea of the 80s and the 90s of the Cold War, and we got to, dude, why did you join the military? Yo, I want to go hunt some commies. Like,
yeah.
Excuse me?
Like, no, and that's Western theology or Western
thinking. And a lot of that has seeped into the church because of the good old boys from the South.
Absolutely.
Like,
and it's been going on for the last 100
decades.
years, and it's not. There's a place for it, not for going killing commies. That mindset just always baffles me too. But I think there's a place for Christians in the military and stuff like. I think there are places for where God sends people to serve in those capacities.
Yep.
But I would agree with you, like the pride of like everybody's under my thumb and you all suck compared to us. I could see that as being.
I'll say this too. We talked about this in the group for a little bit about should Americans even say the Pledge of Allegiance. That was a fun conversation in the group.
Right.
And my kids have noticed that when we are at ball games and things and the national anthem goes up, my hand doesn't go over my heart. Yeah. I mean, that I will be
Personal
honest.
Convictions.
Well, that started with some swaggy swag of like basketball players. Like, bro, you don't put your hand over our, you got that basketball sway. Like, like it started with trying to be swaggy swag back in junior high school. And then as I got older, I'm like, no, I honor the men and women that have fought for what I have right now. I will honor them. I will honor the country that I'm in. But I'm an ambassador for somewhere else. Sure. So I place my hold your hand over your heart for the national anthem. I'm like, there's a line, and so for me, personal conviction, I don't put my hand over my heart because I stand out of respect and I stand out of conviction and I stand out of the honor. But at the same time, my kids and I sing the national anthem because I think it's fun to hit them bass notes, and I do think the national anthem is a beautiful song. Yeah. But at the same time, I just that's the personal conviction I have.
Sure.
I just don't play.
And you know what? I don't. I know people are going to disagree with me. I don't think it's a bad thing that you're following your conviction, right? If you feel convicted that you don't want to put your hand over your heart, say the Pledge of Allegiance, or sing the national anthem, I don't see that as a sin.
Ready
I see
for
that,
this?
Sure, go ahead.
That's an American privilege.
Sure, absolutely.
Like that's an American privilege that we get to have. Like that's the beauty of America.
And most countries have those privileges because they do the same things.
If you didn't say like Hitler back in Germany,
I don't know if I would call it a sin if somebody does it either. You know what I mean?
Oh, I won't call it a sin. I'm just saying I don't think it's right.
Absolutely. And so I would say kudos to you for following your personal conviction. But me personally, I'm indifferent about it. You know what I mean? I want to honor those.
I don't want to teach the traditions of men as dogma in scripture. So
Sure.
it'd be different if I say, if you're a Christian, you cannot put your hand over your heart. That's
right. No, absolutely. You're taking personal conviction and putting it as thus saith the Lord.
That's what the Pharisees did.
Absolutely. Anyways, I like it. So, all right, let's move on to our last example that I'm going to give, and we still got some more content.
Man, y'all haven't had an hour 20 episode in a while. We getting back to them Joe Rogan hours.
So here's the one that really hits me the most, right? So if you want to be patriotic in the right context, you cannot place your political views over relationships. Like, you just can't. If I came to you and me or differ on politicals, and I'm like, screw you,
the Democrats,
libtard, MAGA, whatever slander you want to use because of whatever, and I leave a relationship because of your political views.
Which has,
I think you're crossing a line
and
there.
This is broken. And I will say a lot of times, again, I'm just going to make some whites. You could be mad at me, but normally the party of tolerance is the most intolerant towards this view. I'm not going to lie.
No, yeah, absolutely.
Not going to lie. And so, like, I've had a lot of friends, and I have one in particular in my head, and it breaks my heart. And it really does, where she had a lifelong, I mean, we're talking, they went to church together, they grew up together, they were she was at the kid's birth.
Right.
Because of how my friend voted, her best friend for all of time said, we can't be friends anymore.
Yeah, see, that to
and
me,
I'm like,
as a
are
Christian,
you
is crossing a line.
Like, are you kidding me?
Right. That's something that should never be. To me.
And it wasn't even a conversation of asking why.
It's just like I don't believe Christians split over secondary issues biblically.
Right.
Primary issues, absolutely. You might have to say, no, so you're wrong. And I'll work with you. But
and this is why I like denominations, because I think it's okay if denominations split over secondary issues.
Yeah, I mean, I wish they wouldn't.
It'd be nice if they wouldn't, but sometimes it's just too hard, and it's just easier to me, say, we're going to be brothers, but we're just going to worship in two separate buildings. I'll pause.
No. I'm just going to disagree and move on.
Let's go. I like it. And that's okay to do. Why can't we just do that?
Absolutely. Because that's going to be taking us down a rabbit trail. Listen, it's going to be another hour. So I'm going to leave it. I'm going to put a pin in that for later.
I got 6 minutes.
So let me get through the rest of these notes, and then we'll wrap it up. Right. So I'm gonna rapid fire. So basically, what I'm saying with that whole thing is, if you want to be political and patriotic, great. Do it in the right way, and remember not to ruin your witness for Christ because of love of country or a view of
and
politics.
No matter what you do, even if you try to do this the best you can, there will be people that hate you, that mock you, that despise you, because sadly, that's just the world we're living in.
Yeah. So I kind of just want to do this. I want to read this last thing about what should we remember about politics? There's 7 points that Kelly Stanley says in an article from Crosswalk. And I just want to cover these real fast. We can finish the conversation. Final thoughts, land the plane.
That sounds good.
All right.
And we can continue this conversation over in the Facebook group,
Absolutely.
Guys. So Sherry did this for me a handful of episodes ago, but Sherry, feel free to start the conversation based on what we're talking about right now.
As long as it's respectful, as long as we follow those things that we don't put politics above relationships.
Yep.
I'm going to put the caveats out there. You know what I mean? All right. So 7 points that Kelly Stanley said in the Crosswalk article about should we remember what should we remember about politics? Number 1, God is the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. Our ultimate allegiance is to God and God alone. He is God over all, no matter who is president. He's remained God throughout history, and he will remain God when the election is over in this country and all around the world. Number 2, God's will cannot be thwarted. God will bring to pass everything he has planned. People will abuse their power and use their influence in ways that harm others, ranging from innocent mistakes to purposeful evil, or simply being misguided or misinformed. But no one can waylay God's plans. He is above all earthly power. Whatever happens, no matter how bad or devastating it seems, God can somehow bring out good out of the situation. He can, and he does, and he will continue to do so. Number 3, we are defined not by who we vote for, but by who we follow. As Christians, our identity and self-worth are rooted in who God says we are. And he says we are forgiven, chosen, loved, adopted, welcomed, justified, and redeemed, grafted into the vine, heirs and co-heirs with Christ. We are God's children. We can't earn our place in his kingdom, but we can let ourselves be changed by his love and in turn lavish it on others. Man, I love that one. Mm-hmm. Number 4, no single platform will ever fully represent the teachings of Jesus.
Finally, somebody said it.
To be a Christian means simply to follow Jesus Christ. Each one of us does that to the best of our ability, guided by our interpretations of the Bible, which doesn't mention Democrats or Republicans, but instead warns of the Pharisees. Don't buy into the rhetoric that insists you must vote a certain way if you are a Christian. Instead, ground yourself in the truth that we need to seek God first, always. Number 5, another person's bad behavior does not give us permission to sin. We're not instructed to counter hatred with more hatred, given justification to judge, or taught that it's necessary to dislike those we disagree with. We are taught that our behavior and responses to what we encounter matter to God, and they're the only things we have control over. We need to hold ourselves accountable and seek God's wisdom and discernment. Number 6, Jesus calls for Christians to live in unity. In John chapter 17, Jesus thanked the Father for the ones God had given him, then declared that by the unity of those believers, others will know that the gospel is true. Christians should be more concerned with what we have in common than what divides us. I'm not advocating that we become Stepford Christians. I'm convinced Christians can have different opinions and still be Christians. But I do believe that the way we treat others has a tremendous impact on how non-Christians view our faith and whether they want it for themselves. The accusations we're slinging, the divisions we're showing, and the general squabbling has called the authenticity of our faith into question. And lastly, number 7, we are not without hopes. It's easy to get caught up in the emotions and controversies of the day, but the word grounds us and points us back to God. I just thought those were just 7 beautifully written points that she put out there. And really, there's not one I disagree with, right? Mm-hmm. In the grand scheme of things, no matter if you're being called a Christian nationalist, if you call yourself a Christian nationalist, if you're a patriot, if you're not a patriot, whatever spectrum you're on, I believe those 7 points hold true. I believe our main focus should be Christ and his kingdom, and we should try to find unity the best we can with each other. And our love shows the gospel to non-believers.
And I'll say, in a world that likes division, in a world that likes separation, and in a world that likes labels, this is not easy.
Yeah.
And that's what's hard in my mind. I'm thinking through all these different things, but it's so hard. It is so stinking hard. Right. And once you start talking about, and some people, the older I get, the more I'm okay. You can think whatever the heck you want to think about me, because I ain't going to stop you.
Sure.
But it's hard when we have certain beliefs that put us into different camps. And it's just hard. It's just very, very hard.
Yeah.
But I do like number 7. I think that's what speaks to me the most, is the fact of, after all is said and done, we are not without hope.
Right.
And I think that's the one I'm hanging on to right now, because it's easy to get caught up in the emotions.
Yep.
It's easy to get caught up in the fights. It's easy to get caught up in the he said, she said argumentation of all the different things. And yes, as Americans, we are allowed to, we should vote. It's our civic duty. It's not our moral duty. It's not our religious duty. It's a civic duty.
But it's a right that was given to us by God, because he placed us here.
Correct. And so therefore we have a civic responsibility to that. And we do need to protect truth, and we do need to stand for truth. Yep. And sometimes standing in that gap looks very political, and sometimes it doesn't. But at the end of the day, that we are not without hope. And I like that one, because sometimes I feel pretty hopeless.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Oh, goodness,
so hopefully we did this episode justice.
Hopefully.
I hope so.
After 100 hour and 20 minutes, I sure dang hope so.
It's a Joe Rogan podcast.
I love it, man. But let's give the people what they want. You ready for some fun facts, my dude?
Well, let's do it, buddy.
Time for Fun Facts with February.
You know what I just noticed?
That we still don't have Shiloh on this?
No, that too. But man, we got 2 episodes in the bank ready to go.
We do, because we prepared to do a lot more recording tonight. We only got a couple.
Yeah, we got wrapped up with the conversation with Coat, and then now this one, and that's it.
Sometimes, you just
Good
gotta
conversations.
And this is the thing I like about real talk.
Yeah.
Is the fact of, we don't try to just go surface. We want to
get deep, and this one deserves that deepness. So.
Yeah, I like it, bro.
All
So
right.
let's end this episode with a beautiful fun fact. What we got?
Fun fact of the day: Mount Everest isn't actually the tallest mountain on Earth.
I know this one.
Hawaii's twin volcanoes, Mauna Kea and Mauna Loa, are taller than Mount Everest. 2.6 miles of the volcanoes are submerged
underwater, right?
Yeah. And Mauna Kea and Mauna Loa are 6.34 miles tall. If you measure what's under the water.
Could you imagine? People die on Mount Everest, and it's a third of the height.
I know. It's crazy.
And can I just say what actually is really crazy?
Sure.
Why do people hike Mount Everest anyways? Like, that's just absolutely insane.
Dude,
the fact that you walk on and pass and be like, oh, yo, there's a dead body.
They can't even get him down.
There's another dead body.
They can't get him down.
I get the high. I get the adrenaline rush.
No, I don't.
But you know what is so much easier on your body to get a great sense of just fun
adrenaline?
And excitement and adrenaline? Is joining the RTC Online
That's
Facebook community, folks. So make sure you head over there to join the conversation with over 2,000 other Christians who come from all different sides of the political spectrum. There have been some fantastic conversations, some that I need to respond back to more. But at the end of the day, we have some people that are, I would say, more on the right, some on the left, and a lot of people that are exiles in the middle. And so that's the beautiful thing about the RTC community. We come from different faith backgrounds and all around the world. And I would love to hear from you guys who are from other countries such as Canada, South America, that's a whole continent, South Africa, New Zealand, Ireland,
Peru.
India. Oh, yeah, can't forget our friends over in Peru now, can I? But I would love to hear what you guys have to take on the fact, because we're here as Americans talking about our American world. I would love to hear what your guys' perspective is on your country and our country as well. Not, and again, in a funny way, but more of a, remember, just like Ted Lasso said, stay curious. Stay curious.
All right. And if you haven't already, head over to our YouTube page, Real Talk Christian Podcast. Hit that subscribe button and the bell notification so when we're on, you're made aware.
And make sure you leave us a review anywhere you listen to podcasts. And I won't gas you. Maybe not too bad. I'll gaslight you a little bit. And so you listen to Apple Podcasts, you subscribe on Apple Podcasts, but you haven't left a review on Apple Podcasts. So make sure you leave a rating review over there, rate it on Spotify, and let us know. Send us an email on the subject line that you actually need a mini swag bag.
Please.
So we don't miss that
Helps
email.
us filter a little bit better.
Anything else before we let these wonderful, beautiful people go, my friend?
Just that we love you guys.
We love you guys. Love it. So, hey, crap, you took my signature. We love you guys. And until next time,
take it easy.